So my name is Meredith, and I am the supervisor of the addiction program at Curry Community Health, and I'm also an addict in long-term recovery. I want to tell my story because I want people to know what it's like, and to just have compassion for people who are coming in from experiencing addiction. So my addiction really started to escalate when I was about 21 years old. I used when I was a teenager. I had gotten out of control a couple of times, but I don't think I really became what you would call an addict until I was about 21 years old. And at the time I had two little girls. I had a 5-year-old daughter and a new baby. And I figured out some years later, just having the knowledge that I have now, that what I was really experiencing was pretty severe postpartum depression, and I think that led directly into my drug use. And so when I was 21 years old and I started using meth, I thought at the time that it was everything that I wanted, because I felt better and I had energy and I could take care of my kids, and for a little while it went like that. But eventually I started getting sucked into the lifestyle. Hanging out with other people that used, leaving my kids for days on end with family, and just really started making horrible decisions. And ultimately what that led to was that I ended up losing custody of my daughters. And at that point on, my addiction spiraled. I was filled with self-hatred and shame and anger. And I thought I was a really bad person. I thought I was a horrible person because I had abandoned my children, and I didn't deserve happiness and I didn't deserve to live. And really I wanted to die. And so I set about trying to die through my addiction, through really violent relationships. And then as I spiraled into addiction, I actually started hanging out with people who committed crime, and I started committing crime too. This led to homelessness and jail, and just a spiral of having no relationship with my family. And that went on for a really long time. I had no contact with my children. I had no contact with any of the people who were really important to me, and I was living completely against my values. And you know, that's what addiction is. It's living against your values, almost against your will. You're just chasing that next high, and you become a different human being, and that makes it even harder to ask for help. And so eventually what that lifestyle led to was me being arrested one last time and being sent to prison. And that was the moment that my life really changed. Because once I got to prison, and after I'd had a few months to kind of get my health back and get my brain healed a little bit, they pulled me into treatment. And it was the very first time in my whole entire adult life that somebody encouraged me to look at myself, to reckon with that self-hatred and that shame, to name it and start to work through it. And that was the first time in my life that somebody told me that I was not a bad person and that I had a disease. And it was called addiction, and there was a solution, and that I could be in recovery. And so while I was there in treatment, I did a lot of work. I did so many packets around boundaries, healthy relationships, dealing with that shame. And they started asking me to talk about my kids. For years, I didn't even want to say their names. I started talking to my family again. My dad came and saw me every Sunday. And when I got out of prison, I dived right into a 12-step community. Outpatient is so important because I had somewhere to go 3 times a week, where I would go to a group, I would see my counselor, and I would get to talk about what was happening in real life that made me want to use, or I didn't know how to manage my feelings, or I didn't know how to be a friend. I didn't know how to do life. And I learned how to do that in outpatient treatment, because it was like in real time. They got to help me with current stuff. And that was just such an important part of my experience.